we have a very interesting question from Miss Iris Peoples that
Oh,
she
I
sent
love
to
it.
me last week that I wanted to address, but I was getting ready for MegaCon. But she sent me this. She said, "Hey guys, so the Suicide Squad movie was probably the best comic book movie I've seen since the pandemic." I agree with those sentiments to a degree. Uh, my question is, why did it fail at the box office? I'm hearing it's because Will Smith was not in the sequel, and that was a factor why it didn't go well at the box office. Well, thank you for your question, Iris. And before I continue, John Campy, if you're in the live chat, I would love to know your thoughts since you were in the live chat not last week, but the week before.
Oh
But
man, John Campia, if you were in the chat, say what's up, man.
hey,
That's
man,
so cool.
we do appreciate you watching our show. I know for a fact I'm not as big as all these other YouTubers, but the fact that you were in our live chat, that was freaking amazing.
That's
But
cool.
to answer the question, why with that movie being so good, let me just say I enjoyed the Suicide Squad. I mean, they were balls to the walls. You can definitely see that Warner Brothers gave James Gunn a roadmap and said, just go. And you know what they did better in the first movie? They eradicated most of the characters who were in the first movie in this movie, like Captain Boomerang, dead.
Yeah.
A lot. Rick Flag, the leader, dead. He's not coming back. Like they killed off. They essentially addressed the first movie by killing off some of those characters and continuing with this new lineup. And what I love that they were so wacky and so fun. And I think the funniest scene in that whole movie, the Suicide Squad are killing off certain individuals. They're coming to extract one of their friends, coming to find out that they killed off the team that was supposed to help them fight off this major threat. They're like, "Where is everybody?" Oh, I didn't see. Did you see them? I like that was the funniest shit. I laughed
Yes.
my ass off. I mean, that movie, I think personally, is probably the best comic book movie we've seen so far in 2021. Now, with that being said, to answer your question, is that the reason why it fell at the box office? Is Will Smith not being in the sequel? Well, let me just state this. Well, one, Will Smith is a great actor. He's one of my favorite actors. The fact that people did not go see the Suicide Squad, I seriously doubt that had anything to do with it. I would even consider it a major factor. Speaking of Campy, he did say that that could be a potential factor because it's a lot of unknown characters that people don't know anything about. Well, I could argue the first movie was the very same thing. It's a lot of unknown characters that if you didn't read DC comic books, the Suicide Squad is essentially all Batman villains for the most part. That's what they are. They're all like in the first movie, Katana, Deadshot, Killer Croc, Harley Quinn. All of those are Batman villains.
Yeah.
The only ones who are not are like Rick Flag and like Captain Boomerang. Those are Flash villains. So like if you didn't read those comic books, you didn't know. So I wouldn't necessarily say that was a major factor. What the reason why it failed is, in my opinion, three things: the pandemic, um, HBO Max, and HBO Max, and the fact that it was rated R. Listen, when you make something rated R, the Deadpool kind of struggled with this, even though it made a lot of money. Only a certain amount of people are allowed to go see those movies. The movie theaters that I've been to, especially here in my city, they will card you if they believe that you're going to see a rated R movie. And
Oh
also
wow.
keep in mind, like HBO Max. I saw, and I hate to say that, I didn't have time to go to the theater, but I saw Suicide Squad on my phone, because it was so accessible to me. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not gonna miss this. So I watched it because I didn't have time to go to the theater. So, it's day and date release. So I think the major things that really killed it was because it was rated R, because it was on HBO Max, and obviously the pandemic. Most people are not going to leave their house to go to the theater if they're already feeling hesitant, especially with this whole new Delta variant and all this other stuff. And then also, if I can watch it at home, I can buy my own snacks. I can
Yeah.
invite as many people I want and watch it for free on HBO Max. And I think what kind of killed that is that HBO Max is not charging people to watch Suicide Squad. If you have a subscription, you watch it. You don't have to pay an additional amount of money. I know when I lived in Pensacola, when I wanted to go see a rated R movie, they just let you in. In Orlando, I've seen people, like, if you look young enough where you're not supposed to be in this theater, they will card you at the ticket gate. So I think those are the major three factors. I don't necessarily believe Will Smith, him not being in that movie, was the major reason why. I think he's an amazing actor, and I think if he were in that movie, he could have contributed a lot to the story. However, him not being in that movie, I think, had nothing to do with the demise. But Jeremy, you saw this movie. I saw your review. You seem to really like the Suicide Squad. What did you think about the movie? Do you think it was the best comic book movie so far? And also, why do you think it didn't succeed in the box office? Why do you believe it failed?
As far as what the best superhero movie of 2021 has been so far, I can only think of Black Widow and Suicide Squad. Is there another big one I'm missing?
I mean, the only movie superhero content that's come out has been really on Disney Plus that I can think of. Like, I can't really think of any other movie.
I preferred it to Black Widow for sure. I think it was a really fun movie. And Alex, I echo a lot of what you said. I mean, I think you've identified a couple of the key things. Iris, I absolutely think that there are Will Smith fans out there that probably went to see the first Suicide Squad because he was in it. Mm-hmm. Therefore, there are probably some Will Smith fans that didn't go see it because he wasn't. Mm-hmm. That said, and for a while now, it's been a kind of known and often cited fact that superstars don't necessarily draw box office in the way that they used to. So while in the 1990s, you put Will Smith in Wild Wild West, people are going to go see it. Nowadays, you have to have the IP, right? So it's more about whatever brand that you're trying to sell than it is the actors. I was listening to Corey on Double Toasted the other day, and he was saying that there were no named or like big actors in the movie. And I'm thinking, like, I was getting so mad, dude, because I'm
Idris
thinking
Elba?
like, yeah, Idris Elba, Margot Robbie, at least the two of them, bro. I mean, we could go further down the list, but at least the two of them are huge actors. So I know that it had star power behind it. Now, are those names known to mainstream audiences? Yeah, I think so. I mean, Margot Robbie's been huge as Harley Quinn before, but I've pointed to a couple things. So we've got Will Smith. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest strike against this movie is a little movie called Suicide Squad, which people went and saw. They didn't like it. It was a joke. You know what I mean? It was a joke among audiences. So the first movie definitely had a negative effect on it. Mm-hmm. Pandemic, Alex, you mentioned that. It's very difficult to have the same kind of box office draw as something would without that situation. Mm-hmm. Alex, you also mentioned the HBO Max thing. Duh, if you can go see it for free versus pay to go see it, you're gonna see it for free. I watched it on HBO Max, and I watched it on HBO Max 3 times in 3 days. So I definitely would have given them money if I had to, but because I didn't have to, I didn't. And on that note, Alex, have you ever done one of the Disney premium access?
Oh no. Like I remember saying on the show I would do it for Black Widow. And then when Black Widow first came out, I was like, should I buy it or should I mean the theaters were open, so I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the theaters. So
same. So me and Alex, two of the biggest movie fans you guys probably know, neither of us have paid to do that premium access thing, which kind of shows it's kind of a failure. Their price point is too high for what it is. You'd think they'd rather get $20 than get nothing at all, but they're charging $30. So people are going to pirate it. That's all Disney's side of things. But yes, so there's the HBO Max. And then I wonder about the R-rated thing, because you sold me on both sides of it. You sold me as how it could be a negative, but you also sold me on how it doesn't really matter because movies like Logan and Deadpool succeeded as R-rating movies. Mm-hmm. But those were characters that were well regarded previous to the movies coming out, right? Like everybody loved Hugh Jackman. We literally grew up with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Some of these kids that saw X-Men in 2000 or 2001, when they were babies, they saw Hugh Jackman as a 20-year-old in Logan. So the audience grew with the character. We knew that the people that saw the original were old enough to go to an R-rated movie by then because they've been watching so long. Suicide Squad, our only thing that we can point to was a shitty Harley Quinn movie, Birds of Prey, and a shitty Suicide Squad movie. And then we get this. I mean, dude, the critics and audiences loved the Suicide Squad, but for whatever reason, it didn't work. And I guess I bring up all those things to say it's never one factor. It's not the Will Smith factor. It's not the pandemic factor. It's a perfect storm of several different things that all contributed, you know?
Yeah, and I agree with what Jeremy just said. It's not just one specific thing, you know. It's a several things that have happened with this movie. I feel like it should definitely get its due in another, like a re-release. Like if James Gunn has some extra scenes, an extended cut, like in theaters only. Like that's what I would do, because like this movie is so good. Like this is one of the movies that made me rethink about, okay, the DCEU, this is a step in the right direction if they choose to go in this direction and they allow their creators to create, and not just create crap, but just create something where it's crazy. Like I was expecting so much from Weasel, even though we got a little bit of Weasel. I was like, that was hilarious.
Hilarious.
It was amazing. And come to find out, he didn't die. Like he's still alive. He's still alive, and he escaped the Suicide Squad, as we know so far. And I just can't wait to see what they would do. That's why I'm excited for the Batman and excited for their future projects. So I just can't wait what they do. I hope that this will be the last year we get any more premium access to streaming, depending on how our world situation goes. But you know, I will say to Jeremy's point, like with rated R movies, we got to grow up with those characters, like with even with Deadpool and Logan. Like the fact that we saw Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool prior to him being the official Deadpool made people want to see that movie a whole lot more. With the Suicide Squad, there's literally a bunch of different characters, but at the same time, with the draw to that movie was James Gunn. Like that's why I saw it, because like James Gunn has done amazing films outside the MCU, like Slither and also some other stuff. So I hope it gets its due. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Will Smith was a major factor in not being in this movie that made it not do well in theaters, or do you think it was a bunch of other things? Just jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And